again, and welcome to another PGA podcast from Cheat Code Fantasy Sports. I'm Zach Green and Cody Harvey here with you, and we are going to go over some recap of last week's tournament, the Workday Charity Open. We'll give you some plays for this week for outright bets, head-to-head bets, cash and GPP plays, as well as some tiers action. But we offer at Cheat Code, we offer data-driven picks and plays, and that we combine it with bankroll management and contest selection to help you guys maximize your chances for success. And we're transparent as possible. We provide articles, cheat sheets, player pools, exposures, ownership, point projections, anything that you can think of. And you can join our Slack at the link below for free. And then you can follow us on Twitter at CheatCodeFS, myself at OkiCapo14, or Cody at DCodyHarvey. And we also have a website that's coming. It's almost ready to go pretty soon. So stay tuned to Twitter, and we'll give you some updates there. So as we get into the video, today we want to first start out by recapping last week's Workday Charity Open, starting with our cash plays. So Cody, how did your 3 cash plays go?
So the cash plays I singled out last week. First one was Viktor Hovland. So Vic ended up leading the field in stroke gain tee to green yet again, third straight week. Finished with 119.5 DK points. So that's good for over 12.5 times value. So he was highly owned in cash and in GPPs. But for cash, I've got no problem with that. He ended up over 31% in some of the cash games. But at that value, ownership's really irrelevant. So third most fantasy points out of anyone, behind only Morikawa and JT, Dustin Thomas. And yeah, great week for Hovland yet again. Second play was Adam Hadwin. Started off really strong, didn't finish that great on the weekend. Finished with 68.5 DK points, so over eight times value, which is good enough for cash. Again, he came in really highly owned in both cash and in tournaments as well, over 30% in some of the cash games. And then the last pick was, as you could tell if you watched the video last week, I was extremely confident in, was Emiliano Grillo. So Grillo started off really strong the first 9 holes and then kind of tapered off. It was a good course history play, but didn't end up returning value. 23.5 DK points as he didn't make it through the weekend, missed the cut. 3.3 times value and low owned in cash and tournaments. So Zach, how are your cash plays from last week?
The first one for me was Gary Woodland, and he had 101.5 DraftKings points, 12.2 value. He was about 21% in GPPs and 26% in cash games. He ended up with the 4th highest fantasy points behind JT, Morikawa, and Hovland. But he did have a bad first round, kind of made me nervous there. Especially, I think it was like, until he eagled, I think it was like hole 14 on day 2, he was in danger of missing the cut. And so he was starting to make me nervous there, but he snuck by, and then he turned it on Saturday and Sunday and ended up finishing, I think he finished in the top 5. So great performance after Thursday and Friday wasn't too great for him. And then the next one, Cameron Champ, he had 52 DraftKings points, 6.8x value, and he was about 16% in GPPs and cash games. He made the cut, but that was about the end of his positive results there. He shot over par on both Saturday and Sunday. And Sunday, it's like every time I turn around, it was like Champ bogey, Champ double bogey, Champ bogey. And he didn't even get a birdie, I think, the entire Sunday. So wasn't the best result, but because of his price and how we were able to fit in some other guys, it didn't necessarily kill you in your cash lineups. And then the last one was Patrick Cantley, 96.5 DraftKings points, 9.1x value, 28% in the Millie contest, and then 35% in cash. He ended up with the ninth most fantasy points. He was great for cash this week. He was better on the weekend like Woodland. He flirted with missing the cut, but not as bad as Woodland, because I think he was like -3 was the lowest he got. But he was obviously better, especially on Sunday when he shot a -7. So overall, both Cody and I, cash plays ended up pretty successful for the most part. I would say 4 of 6, the result that we wanted, and then Cham didn't really hurt us as much, and then just the one miscut. So for my GPPs last week, I have Ricky Fowler. He had 86.5 DraftKings points, 9.6 value, about 15% in the GPPs, 10% in cash. Good enough for GPPs, not quite what we want, but pretty decent. And he scored the 18th most fantasy points. He's still not back to the level that we know Ricky Fowler's capable of. But he got the job done for the second week in a row, tournament in a row, I should say. And then Scotty Scheffler, I'm always tempted by him every week, and he keeps letting me down. 30 DraftKings points, 3.8x value, 10% in the millie, 5% in cash, and it was just another bad week. He's better than the way he's been playing, but he's missed 3 straight cuts, and so I think my time of waiting on him to come back is probably over, at least for the time being. And then Henrik Norlander was my last play, 71 DraftKings points, 10.9x value, 8% in the millie, and 9% in cash games. It was great for his price, a low price of $6,500. Ownership was way down, which surprised me because he had been playing well at Rocket Mortgage Classic coming into the tournament. And so he was a good play there. So how was your GPPs, Cody?
So my first GPP play was Brooks Koepka. So he ended up missing the cut. Had a really poor start, and then turned it on the last 9 holes. So he'll be back in the field this week, and I don't know if it's because he's needing those FedEx Cup points or if he was just feeling good after that last half of the second round. But he only was good for 33.5 DK points, so just over 3 times value. Ended up being 15% in the Millie Maker, low owned in cash. And I think based on his performance last week, he'll probably be low owned again. Second play was Joaquin Niemann. So Niemann ended up with 76.5 DK points, so good for over 9 times value. He was relatively low owned in the Millie Maker too, considering his form. He was just over 12%. Solid week from Niemann. Last GPP play was Harold Varner III, or HV3. HV3 was looking good after day 1, and then had a blow up round in round 2, as a lot of players did. So he ended up shooting +6 in the second round, take him out of contention and missing the cut. So he ended up with 22.5 DK points, 3 times value, but 10% in the Millie Maker. So if he did hit, it would have been good. Just couldn't avoid the big numbers and the bogeys. So that brings us to the first look for this week, the Memorial Tournament. So we're staying at Muirfield Village in Dublin, Ohio. So Jack's place, as we talked about last week. So this is Jack Nicklaus's tournament. Really picturesque course. It's plays around 7,400 yards, par 72. So each hole gets tougher the closer you get to the green. So wide fairways, but it really rewards strong iron play with an emphasis on approach. And the closer you can hit it as far as proximity goes. You saw Collin Morikawa last week was getting it so close. It didn't matter that he's not a strong putter stat-wise when you're hitting it within 10 feet on pretty much every approach. So like I mentioned, wide fairways, so they should be easy to hit. But you really got to set up your approach. Greens are lightning fast, rough is longer. So watching some of the highlights from last week, if you thought those greens were fast, they're going to be rolling even faster. They're not cutting down the rough at all, so really emphasis on accuracy. We got water in play on about half the holes, and we've got greenside bunkers that are pretty deep. So when you take into consideration greenside bunkers and the rough, if you're missing the greens, you got to be a good scrambler to avoid those big numbers. So Zach, why don't you fill us in on how weather looks so far?
Yes. So first thing I want to mention that I've already seen a lot of people posting like generic weather reports that it's going to be bad weather for like 3 of the 4 days. But what I want to mention is when you're looking at those generic like weather.com or the weather apps on your phone, and it says like 60% chance of rain. Well, that is going from 12 midnight to 12 midnight. And so there could be 60% chance of rain, but it could be not even during the tournament time. And so specifically on Thursday is what we want to talk about. I've seen a lot of people saying Thursday is going to be bad. But the rain, for the most part on Thursday, is happening before 8 a.m., as we see on the forecast models, because those give us a better indication because you can look at the exact locations where the projected radar is showing up and all that. So it has the rain clearing out, maybe affecting like the first few tees, but for the most part that day on Thursday being fine. But Thursday, we're looking at about 74 degrees in the morning to about 87 in the afternoon. The winds will be about 6 to 7 miles an hour until about 10 or 11. And then they're going to stay around 9 to 11 miles an hour the rest of the day. So Thursday is really the only day that I see big weather concerns, specifically with the wind. As we saw, I think it was Saturday last week, with the wind being kind of crazy, how it affected a lot of golfers. And then Friday looks great. 74 in the morning, 87 in the afternoon. Basically non-factor of the winds, 0 to 3 miles an hour, and then no rain chances on the models. And then Saturday, 73 in the morning, but up to 90 in the afternoon. Winds non-factor in the morning of 0 to 3 miles an hour, but then up a little bit, about 5 to 6 in the afternoon. And then Saturday is another possible slight chance of rain, this time in the afternoon. But as of right now, it doesn't look like a big issue. And then Sunday, 76 in the morning, 91 in the afternoon, and winds about 5 to 8 miles an hour the entire day with no rain issues. So really the only, as of today, Tuesday night at 5:30 Central Time, the only ones that I'm seeing any issue is Thursday early in the morning and then Saturday in the afternoon. And so just stay tuned to our Slack chat. Again, you can get that link below for free. And I'll be giving updates throughout the day tomorrow and then for each consecutive day. Because if Saturday turns out to be a higher rain chance in the afternoon, we can target maybe the AM golfers on Saturday morning. So that's about it for the weather. So Cody, let's go into our outright picks. So who are yours?
So for outrights this week, there's not a lot of value at the top of the board. If I was going to bet the top of the board, I think having JT bounce back or Patrick Cantlay on your card is completely fine. But there's no point in really peppering that top of the card when there's not a lot of value there. So I'll be looking a little bit lower on the card. And 3 that really jumped out. First one's Daniel Berger at plus 4,000 or 40 to 1. So Berger comes in stellar form, 4 straight top 5s and a top 10 in his last 5 events. And he really fits the mold with what we're looking for as far as this event goes. really great ball striker, great iron play, and he's an above average putter too. So Daniel Berger at plus 4,000 is sneaky good, I think. Second one is Jason Day at plus 6,000. So those of you who may be new to golf, Jason Day recently, he hasn't looked great. He's injury prone. Jason Day is former number one golfer in the world. So he kind of showed flashes of that last week with his T7 finish at this track at the workday. So this is his home course. He lives nearby. He gets home cooking. He gets to sleep in his own bed every night. And in a recent interview I saw, he's motivated again. He's kind of changed his outlook, and now that he's healthy, he's changed his attitude. He wants to be that number one golfer in the world right now. And Jason Day, when he's at the top of his game, I'd put him up against Rory and DJ and Brooks and any of those guys. He's got a really, I'll talk about him more a little bit later on when we get to the GPP plays, but this course really fits J Day's strengths quite well. So at 60 to 1, I'm fine taking that chance. That's a great number. Last one is a little bit more of a long shot. However, he's shown he's got winning pedigree, both in, tough field events and in courses in Ohio, like we get this week, is Shane Lowry at plus 12,500 or 125 to 1. So he was T32 last week at Workday, but looking deeper, he had 20 birdies and an eagle. But the problem was he had too many big numbers with 14 bogeys and 2 double bogeys. So if he can cut down some of those bigger numbers, he'll be right there in contention. If weather does become an issue, if the wind does pick up, then it's unpredictable. The course is playing tougher this week. That's when Shane Lowry's at his best. And we're coming up on the year anniversary of when he won the Open. He's shown that in really tough fields like we have this week, he can pull ahead. So who are you your betting card for the outrights this week, Zach?
Yeah, the first one is kind of a long shot as well. Kevin Na plus 12,500. And the reason his odds are so high is because of his injury concerns. He's withdrawn a couple times from back injury, things like that. And so that's why I like him for betting on outright and betting instead of DFS, because if he withdraws, it's like, oh, well, I got other bets to look at. But if you play him especially in cash, and he withdraws, you're kind of screwed. But he's 37th in my model, 6th in the strokes gained putting. And again, just the play because he's high odds. And 1 week he withdrew the week before and then came back the next week and finished 6th in the tournament. So he has a chance if he's healthy, but that's a big question. And then the next one is Rory McIlroy, plus 1,400. And the reason on this one is if I can get the world number one at the third best odds of any tournament, I like that. 12th in my model, 1st in strokes gained tee to green, 4th in scrambling, which is going to be big with the amount of hazards we have here. And then just again, like I mentioned, he's usually the highest odds on any tournament. And so anytime you can get him below that, I like to take a chance on him. And then the last one is kind of a mid-range pick, Webb Simpson, plus 2,800. He's first on my model. He's been great since he's come back from the break. And I love him in all formats this week. He's first in birdie or better percentage, and he's third in bogey avoidance. So, Cody, I know you don't have any head-to-heads this week, but you're going to give us some other plays in place of that.
Yeah, you bet. I didn't mention it in Canada, so my book of choice is Bet365. The numbers are going to change depending on what book you use, as are your head-to-head matchups. If you want input on the head-to-head matchups that your book provides, just give us a holler in the Slack chat and we can help you out. As Zach's mentioned it before, if you just take a look at the model, normally that'll steer you in the right direction. But with our Slack chat, one of the big benefits is that you get that one-on-one coaching or advice instead of just having to rely on other sources. So Bet365 didn't crash, but none really jumped out to me this week, sorry. So instead, in the top 10 market, I like Patrick Cantlay at plus 162. So plus money for Patrick Cantlay to finish top 10 is, I think, is great value. They've got the top countryman bets. So the top Australasian is, I'm going for Jason Day at plus 162. So really all he's got to beat is the other Australian golfers. So Mark Leishman, Danny Lee, and they throw Vijay Singh in there. So plus 162, I like Jay Day's odds. And in the top Asian market, I like Hideki Matsuyama at plus 130, where he's really got to only come ahead of Sungjae Im, CT Pan. And that's about it. So you use MyBookie, is that right, Zach?
Yeah, that's right.
So which head-to-head bets do you like?
Yeah, and that's what's kind of frustrating with MyBookie is because you're always telling me about these countryman plays, but they don't offer it there. And it's really frustrating because some of those, like you mentioned, Day and Hideki seem like pretty easy ones. So they only have a couple guys they need to beat. But anyways, for head-to-head, the first one I like is Dustin Johnson, plus 100 versus Collin Morikawa. And Morikawa obviously is going to be popular this week because of last week. But overall, he's not a good putter. And like Cody mentioned earlier, he was hitting it close, so it didn't really matter. But the greens are going to be faster this week than they were last week. And he's still overall ranking 150th in strokes gained putting. And so putting the fast greens there plus the winter hangover, I don't think he's going to have as good a week as last week. And then Johnson, he's been playing well this week since the break. He's finished 17th, and he's also won a tournament. And he's finished top 10 3 times here. So I think he's going to beat Morikawa head-to-head. The next one is Patrick Cantlay, plus 110 versus Bryson DeChambeau. Bryson's been playing really good. There's no doubt about it. His drives have been great. His putting has been great, but he still is a little struggling with his irons. And like Cody mentioned, first shot's going to be easy here with the wide fairways, but getting from there to the greens is going to be important. And so is he going to struggle with that? Maybe. Like we mentioned, Cantlay's been in the top 10, 7th or better 3 times at this course, and I expect him to be in the top 10 again here. Finished 7th last week. And if Bryson has a day where he's struggling with his irons, getting frustrated with himself, and blows up, he could miss the cut, honestly. I mean, I don't think he will miss the cut, but there's always a chance he has that blow-up round, and if Cantlay's solid like he was all last week, it's not going to be close to him. So, Cody, now we're going to get into cash plays. So who do you like for cash this week?
So first cash play that I'm going to lock in is you just were talking about him, Patrick Cantlay. So on DK he's 9,800, FanDuel he's 11,600, and $43 on Yahoo. So I don't normally like spending up too much for cash, but I think with the safety and upside we get at Cantlay, I think 9,800 is a really solid price. So now that Morikawa has and Fitzpatrick missed cuts not too long ago, Patrick Cantlay is now the longest active cut streak on tour at 16 straight. So he's, of course, the defending champion here, winning the Memorial last year. And he was also 7th last week at the Workday Charity Open. Really safe play. Love Patrick Cantlay for all formats this week. Second one, I'm going to Abraham Answer. So Abraham Answer has been in really just solid form. He comes in this week, 8,500 on DraftKings, 9,900 on FanDuel, and $35 on Yahoo. So in his last 3 tournaments, he's 12th, 1st, and 10th in shots gained approach. And that kind of correlates to his form of 11th, 2nd, and 14th since the break. To get a guy who fits the winning mold like Abraham Answer does for 8,500, I think is a really solid value as well. Lastly, there's another player in this range that I really like as well, but the last cash play is Paul Casey, 7,900 on DraftKings, 9,600 on FanDuel, and $34 on Yahoo. Really exceptional ball striker, really strong with the irons and shaping his shots. So 2nd on tour in ball striking for the season, 9th in shots gained approach, and 12th in greens and regulation. And missed a cut all season. He's an older player, so he's well aware of his schedule. So he hasn't played in a few weeks, but I don't think that he'll have that much rust to knock off. And at 7,900, having someone with Casey's upside is another solid value. So who are you liking for cash this week, Zach?
First one is another familiar name you already mentioned. We've already been talking about him a lot. Patrick Cantley, 9,800 on DraftKings, 11,600 on FanDuel, and $43 on Yahoo. After kind of a shaky first round, he was pretty much solid the rest of the way. Projected ownership is about 20%, which is safe for cash. And really, we don't need to worry about ownership, but some people like to know who's going to be chalked when they're making their lineups. So if that's something that concerns you, he's going to be one of the highest owned. And then he's been top 11 in both tournaments since the break. He's top 10 last 3 tournaments here at Muirfield, 4th on my model, and he's a safe cash option. And you don't even have to pay over $10,000 like you did last week for him. So just a solid play there. And then the next one is Kevin Streelman, 7,600 on DraftKings, 9,300 on FanDuel, $24 on Yahoo. Comes in 24th on my model, 20th in ball striking. He's 10th in par 5 birdie or better. And there's some really long par 5s on this course. So that's going to be a good stat there. And he's been top 10 twice since the break. And then 5 times here, he's been in the top 20 since 2015. And 3 of those in the top 10. So again, ownership doesn't really matter, but he's 12th highest projected owned at 13%. But like I said, ownership doesn't matter. He should be a safe option for your cash games. And then the last one is Ricky Fowler, DraftKings 8,800, FanDuel 10,300, and then Yahoo $35. So 26th on my model. If you've watched the podcast, I've been on Ricky the last 2 weeks for GPPs, and both times we mentioned on the podcast recap that he did okay for GPPs, but not as great as we want for GPPs. But guess what he's doing good for is cash games now. If we were kind of worried because he had been so poor in a few of his tournaments after the break. But the last 2 at Rocket Mortgage Classic and the Workday Charity, he's been solid. 22nd and 12th finishes here. And then at this course, he's had 2 top 10s in the last 4 years. And every time he's finished 22nd or better of those 4 years. He's 13th in strokes gained tee to green last week on the Workday Charity. And then he's 62nd overall for the year on strokes gained putting. About 11% ownership. So it's a little bit low enough that if you like one of those guys, if you're like me, I like one guy to be about 10% or less in my cash games, because if he makes a cut, finishes top 10, whatever, then he's going to shoot you up the leaderboards on the cash games and get you there. But as you know, there's a little bit of risk there too. So if you want all safe guys, You can kind of look at the ownership in our model and figure that out. But I like Ricky for cash games this week. So who are you liking for GPPs, Cody?
So for GPPs, one play that sticks out at the in the 10K range is Dustin Johnson. So DJ is 10,300 on DraftKings, 11,500 on FanDuel, and $44 on Yahoo. So based on our projections from our resident expert Thomas Kelly, shout out Thomas, great job again. He's the lowest owned in the 10K range. He's projected around 10%. So he's coming off a win at the Travelers. He was 6th in shots gained approach. He had his irons working and his putter working. And I just came across this today, an interview. He's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Everyone's talking about Bryson DeChambeau and Bryson's body change and how far he hits it. I'm just going to read this so I get it right. So DJ said, until I feel like I need to hit it further to compete or beat these guys, then that's what I'll do. But for right now, I feel like if I'm playing my game, he, as in Bryson, can hit it as far as he wants to, and I don't think he's going to beat me. So when DJ's feeling good and he's confident, and that translates to his game. And if we can get DJ at 10%, I think that's huge leverage on the field. Second play I like, I talked about him already, is Jason Day. So Jason Day comes in at $8,000 on DraftKings, $9,800 on FanDuel, and $28 on Yahoo. He's projected to be under 9% owned. He was T7 last week, like I mentioned. This course should really set up for him nicely. The weakness in his game is his accuracy off the tee. So with wide fairways, that kind of mitigates that. His strengths are his strong iron play, and once you get closer to the hole, the better he is. And that's exactly what this track is going to need. So at 8,000, under 9% owned, Jason Day's upside is immense. So I like him for GPPs. Again, another person I talked about in the outright section, great GPP play, I think, is Shane Lowry. So Shane Lowry comes in at 7,200 on DraftKings, 8,900 on FanDuel, and $25 on Yahoo. So he's going to be around 3% owned. So those are the types of guys that you need if you're going to take down a GPP. You need a guy around 5%, and you need a guy around 3% and lower if you're going to take down a GPP. So Shane Lowry, around 3% owned, was scoring last week's tournament, 20 birdies and an eagle. Like I mentioned, if he can avoid those big numbers, then we're looking good. And tougher the conditions, tougher the course, the better Lowry shows up. He's shown that he can win in tough fields, and we got one toughest field that we've seen in some time this week. So I like Shane Lowry at 7,200 on DraftKings. So Zach, who are you playing in your GPPs this week?
First one is going to be Harris English, DraftKings 7,300, FanDuel 9,000, Yahoo $26. Comes in 9th on my model. He finished 17th at RBC Heritage, 18th here at Muirfield in 2015, 10th in ball striking, 28th in strokes gained putting. I debated on him for one of my cash plays, but I decided to do him for GPPs because of the fact that he's only played in 2 tournaments since the break, and they were quite a few weeks ago. And as well as that, his course history is kind of outdated with 2015. So he makes for a good play though, and he's 6.65% projected ownership. So that's going to be, anytime you can get anybody below 10%, it's going to be one of those wild cards that if they do what they should, they'll boost you up the leaderboards. My next one is Matthew Neesmith. Comes in at 6,200 on DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel, and $20 on Yahoo. I played him in cash last week, and he let me down. Missed the cut, but I want to go right back to him in GPPs. He's 18th in my model, and last week was the first time he saw this course. So he should be a little bit better now that he's seen the course before. I know it's going to be faster greens and everything, but just being able to know, where the hazards are and all that stuff, I think it's going to help him. And he's because of his performance last week and being down towards because that's one thing. Anybody below 7,000 is always going to be low owned because people don't scroll far enough down whenever they're looking for guys unless they know who they're looking for. So he's projected at 1.65 ownership. And so he's one of those plays with that low of ownership. If he, makes the cut, finishes in the top 25, you have a chance to take it down if the rest of your guys are solid. And he's 22nd in strokes gain approach. And then at my last one, so all of these except for Neesmith, I kind of already considered in cash but didn't go there, is Webb Simpson. He's 9,600 on DraftKings, 11,100 on FanDuel, and $43 on Yahoo. Number one on my model. Most people's models, he's going to come in number one because he's so good in literally every stat right now. Last two tournaments here, he's finished in the top 10, or last two tournaments overall, sorry. He's finished in the top 10, and he's had a win as well since the break. He's 11th place finish here at Memorial in 2016. He's number one in birdie or better percentage. He's fifth in strokes gain approach and fourth in ball striking. 13% ownership projection because Cantley's $200 more and Hovland's $100 less. Webb is going to go way overlooked for GPPs. Now, so you could get very low ownership on him this week. And then, so Cody, before I go into the tiers, I just want to get your thoughts with Tiger Woods coming back this week. What are your general thoughts on him this week?
So I mentioned Tiger Woods in my article. Article is free in our Slack. It'll also be posted on Twitter and will be live on our website at cheatcodefantasysports.com. But Tiger at $9,000 is live for cash and GPPs. I think you briefly touched on it. People are going to be clicking on him because it's Tiger Woods. He will have high ownership, but his upside is quite high. He's got a win on tour already this season. He had a top 10 here last year. Someone like Tiger Woods, where he's been dealing with injuries, he's an older golfer now. He's got to play with his schedule. And like I mentioned with Paul Casey, it'll take him about a round to knock off the rust, and that's about it. He's got 5 victories here. I think Tiger at $9,000 is an absolute steal. The only thing that you'll have to be aware of is that ownership is. He'll come in over 20% owned. I didn't look at it. I'm just going to pull it up right now. But it wouldn't surprise me if Tiger's going to be above 20%. So right now, our projections for cheat code have them at 17.5%, which is the highest in that range, going up to until you get to John Rahm and Hideki Matsuyama. But I like Tiger. I think I'd like Tiger more for cash than GPP. I think him kind of backdooring a top 10, kind of like what Patrick Cantlay did at the Workday, is completely reasonable. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the leaderboard come Sunday, but I see more of him kind of just taking it easy and backdooring a top 10 finish, which for cash at 9,000 will more than pay off his value.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you hit it, right on the head with a guy like that we're not really sure what the upside is right now, but we know that there's upside. But he's going to always have ownership because of his name. That's why he makes for better cash play, because you have the safety net of the ownership in case he does, come out and just look awful for some reason. So it's not going to kill you if somebody misses the cut, like with Neesmith. I had him last week. He was 2% in cash and he missed the cut. It didn't end up hurting me because I had Cantlay and Woodland. But if I had, if Cantlay and Woodland didn't do as great, then it would have hurt me. So that's kind of the difference in cash games, you don't necessarily want to play, the top 6 owned guys just because but if you're looking at the models and you're trying to debate between 2 guys and they're literally close on all the stats, then I would lean on your cash games towards the guy with the higher ownership if it's pretty much a tie in your mind. So that's just a free tidbit there. But tiers, so as we've talked about the last few weeks, that I've been playing tiers for 3 weeks now, and easy cash 3 weeks straight. And all I do is look at my model, look at Cody's model, look at the article, and then pick my guys there. And I'm getting 6 of 6 making the cut every week too. So I want to help you guys on some GPP plays for tiers. Cash, I don't want to mention just because we don't want to have a lot of ties, and it's already kind of limited. Like on tier 1, you only have 3 options. So the ownership is going to be crazy anyways. So three guys that I like for low ownership because of where they are on the tiers. First one is in tier 2, Webb Simpson. And I think he's going to go overlooked in this tier because, like we mentioned before, Morikawa is in there, and people are going to pick on him just because he won the tournament last week. And then Tiger's in there. People are going to pick Tiger because it's Tiger Woods. And Webb is high on my model, and so I trust him to continue to play well here. And I mentioned him as GPP, but I wouldn't mind him in cash as well on tiers. And then tier 5, Joaquin Niemann, he's been solid. And I played him in cash last week for the main slate. And I think he goes overlooked a lot because of where his price is and who the guys are around him usually. But he's 30th in my model, and I think, and I could be wrong, but I think on this tier, people are going to still play Sungjae Im and Tony Finau. But Sungjae he hasn't really looked that good the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Since the break, really.
Yeah, barely making the cut. And then I think the last 2 Sundays, he's been over par. So just not great. But people are still playing it, looking at his stats from before the break. And then tier 6, Mark Leishman. Going back here, I played him last week in the tiers GPP. He missed the cut last week, but he has 4 top 15s in the last 5 years at Memorial. And I expect him to play better this week. And I think the ownership is going to go towards Billy Horschel and Ian Poulter because of how they played last week. So that wraps up another podcast here. We want to give a shout out again to Thomas Kelly for our projections and ownerships and points. And then Aaron Marga does our NFL. Aaron Buss does college with me. Jake and Luke Altmaier do NASCAR for us. And then Phil Beneteau does NBA, NFL, and MMA as well. And then Francois Fortier. You're Canadian. You might pronounce it better.
He's French Canadian, so it's Fortier.
Okay, Fortier. He's going to be doing MLB and I think NFL as well for us. So once again, get in our Slack chat for free. Just got to click the link below. The link will be on Twitter as well. And that's where you're going to get Cody's on there every Wednesday night, giving you guys advice on who to play in your lineups. And then I can give you guys weather, anything. If you have a question for Thomas about ownership, anybody, you can hit up in the Slack. So Cody, anything you want to say before we go?
No, I think you just about covered it. Like and subscribe to the video. You're watching this on YouTube, so make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you get all of our new videos. We're getting really close to sports. MLB is 9 days away. NHL is ramping up. We're going to see the NBA bubble games coming up. So as sports is coming back, you're going to see more and more content from us. The real value is in Slack, where you get that one-on-one coaching and advice Shout out to Puma Golf. But that's about it.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us, and hope you have a good week and good luck.